morning, van builders. Hope you are all well and welcome to this plus 10 update from the 2 plus 10 playlist, building a camper van a slightly different way. And regular subscribers will know what we mean by that is we've built out the bulk of the furniture before actually getting the base van. I don't want to board regular, so if you're coming on a random link, you can click up there and it'll tell you why we're doing that way, the techniques we've adopted to try and do it that way, the pros, the cons, just in case it's of use to you. You might be thinking about building a van out and you want to get a head start before you get the actual base van. But today we're going to be talking about insulation and dealing with condensation, because we've now got the van, now just got the base van, and we're going to crack on with that. And I'm going to try and do that without mentioning a vapor barrier. Shit, I just did. Okay, cat amongst the pigeons, let's hop into the van. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm separating out dealing with condensation and dealing with heat loss. They're two separate things. So condensation, I'm using this stuff. It's not a vapor barrier, it's a vapor barrier. Okay, and this is going to go on against the cold metal. And for insulation, I'm using good old PIR foam, so that's things like Celotex and Kingspan. It's all basically the same stuff. But for all those difficult to get places like box sections and little gaps, I'm using the good old recycled insulation, recycled bottle insulation. Okay, so this is about half as good as this in terms of preventing heat loss. Its thermal conductivity is around about double of the PR foam, but of course you can get into the nooks and crannies. Okay, so let's crack on. I'm going to do it in sections. Today I'm going to do this panel here. Okay, so let me take you through my thinking on this. And by the way, I don't want to open up this debate. There's plenty of other forums for that, but just where I'm coming from. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think that's where at the bottom line. So we're kicking off by putting on the self-adhesive closed cell foam. But we all know what the issue is. It's condensation. So warm air is less dense than cold air and contains more water, can hold more water molecules. As it cools down, presses, and the water molecules drop out, and that causes condensation. So when the relative humidity equals the absolute humidity, you get the dew point. And that's what you see on your windows in the morning. And of course, what we want to do is stop that happening on the side of our van. Now, the vapor barrier team say, no worries. What you do is after you put your insulation on, you put a big sheet of polythene all around your van, all over the insulation, and that stops the moist air inside your van getting to the outside. Yeah, fine, but I think in my mind, I haven't got the, shall we say, the technical capacity or the skill set to ensure that all the vulnerable pieces of metal are protected inside that vapor barrier. And of course, the other team said, no, the van is a living entity. You let it breathe. You don't put a vapor barrier. You let it breathe. Plenty of ventilation will just get rid of it. And again, yeah, ventilation's good if you can get the moisture out of the van. Because, of course, you're generating moisture just when you breathe, when you're sleeping, when you're cooking. And, yeah, it'd be great to extract it out. Now, my thinking is, well, yeah, but let's do our best to stop what we can, condensation, but allow for ventilation on the parts we can't do. So mine's a bit of a hybrid solution, I guess. So what I'm doing is covering as much of the metal as I can with the foam. I'll talk a little bit about the thickness of that in a minute. Well, I haven't got a vapor barrier over the top of the foam, and so hopefully there'll be ventilation to help sort of clear that down. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this closed cell foam, how thick it needs to be and how it's doing its job. So we all know heat travels from hot to cold. Some people say heat rises. No, it doesn't. Hot air will rise through cold air because it's less dense, but one of the consequences of the second order thermodynamics is that heat will travel from hot to cold. So you can be sure that it might be nice and warm in your van, but as you approach the edge of your still van, things are getting colder and colder, and the air will pretty well be the same temperature as the air outside when it hits that cold still. And at the point where it reaches the dew point, water will be dropping out, and you don't want that dropping out on anything really. So by putting the closed cell foam, which air can't pass through, basically what you're doing is you're stopping air getting to the point in the structure where dew point will be reached, because you can be sure that the temperature is dropping through everything, the foam and that butyl rubber, and basically you're trying to stop the air getting cold enough to dew point out. And you can look things up, but the thickness of that rubber is dependent on the differences between the temperatures inside and outside and the relative humidities inside and outside. But in severe situations, I've I know I need sort of 4.5, 5 absolute maximum. I've gone for 10, so there's absolutely loads of capacity in there. So I'm covering as much of the metal I can with that. Then I'm going to be putting the foam in over the top, which we'll see in a minute. But I'm not putting a vapor barrier over the top of that. So any bits that I haven't been able to protect, hopefully will be protected by some ventilation. And essentially, I know it works from my existing van, because that's what I've done on that one. Okay, so after putting in the closed cell foam, just I'm going over all the gaps with a foil tape, just to close those gaps down to make them airtight. Okay, now after that I'm going to go in with the PIR foam, which I've pre-cut to the right shape and join bits on with duct tape to make it as close fit as possible. And then following that, it will be the recycled bottle insulation or the nooks and crannies. Ordinarily, what I'd be doing is the whole of the metal with the closed cell foam first, then going in with the PIR foam, and then going in with the recycled bottle insulation. But I'm doing it in panels for a particular reason, because there's elements of this van I want to keep exposed, keep it naked for a while. It's predominantly some of those box sections, because I've got more thoughts on some different wire transits I might want to put through there. So I'm just going to do it in sections. Okay, so if only it were that quick. Right, thanks for watching. By the way, this bit of ply here, it came with the van. I put it on just to protect the foam. You know, I may even leave it in position because the structure's going to cover that up. But I will have to put some holes in it to attach the straps that are going to fix all my structure to the ribs of the van. I don't line out and attach to ply or pine cladding. My structure gets attached direct to the ribs of the van. If you want to know a little bit more about the stuff in terms of condensation and insulation, all that stuff, there's a guy on YouTube that some of you may have heard of called Greg Virgo. I like what he says. He talks sort of language I learned way back in university in 1897. But in addition to that, he's worked in the heating and ventilation sector, so it's like real life experience behind the theory. But I think that's it. I'm going to just finish off the whole van now. But in the meantime, if you want to do the like and subscribe nonsense, that'd be fantastic. And I'll see you in the next one.